Hi there. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Women and Investing, Challenges Faced by Women Investors. Before we begin, unfortunately, we are not able to answer questions live during the session. However, if you can use the chat box below to share your excitement about the session, the event overall, questions that you may have. Please send them to investmentservices@becu.org. So with that, let's get started. My name is Janet Coe. I'm with New York Life Investments with our Advisor Advancement Institute. Our entire team is really focused and dedicated working alongside financial professionals, but really to ultimately help you, the members, the clients, to be able to achieve your financial success. Part of our driven forces and the ideas behind why we all came together was really understanding one particular area, female investors as a whole. Why is it that even today, female investors are not as engaged when it comes to working with your own financial seat at the table? And so we did an extensive study. And so the purpose of today really is to go through some of those findings, your part in this conversation, in this relationship, and how you can enhance your relationship with your financial professional and what you're able to get out of BECU. So we'll get started here. Some 5 key drivers when it comes to female investors as a whole, some things for you to consider. Number 1, knowing your role. How are you approaching this relationship? Where is the background that you are coming from and having the conversations and what you're bringing to the table? What are your concerns? What are the things that you should be considering based off of where you're coming from? Number 2, taking ownership of your own financial literacy. Understanding, taking a step back, questioning yourself, how comfortable am I with this? And is this why I may not be as engaged in this conversation? What do I need to do? Number 3, changing the dialogue or the narrative, the relationship, the idea about working with financial professionals thus far. We have the power. It's actually in your hands. What does that mean? How can you change it? How can you change the dynamics? 4, as in all things that we do, tracking your progress and staying in front of your goals. And then lastly, making sure that we continue to stay engaged. You're here today, enjoying the sessions that are provided to you, the information that's provided to you. Our ask is that you continue to do so in order for you to achieve your financial success. So we'll get right into it. The very first, when we say knowing your role, what we mean here essentially is women as a whole have unique financial challenges and needs, concerns. That's what we learned when we did this research about 3 years ago. We also know, and we can consider this for your own selves, over 90%, actually 96% of financial decisions when it comes to the home done by women. When we look at overall purchasing power, buying influence, 70 to 80% also women. Yet, in our research, we learned, unfortunately, there is a disconnect when it comes to investing. We need to understand what that disconnect is and possibly identifying maybe where you're coming from. Meaning, look at yourselves, think of your loved ones. Who is the suddenly single person? Who is the married breadwinner? Who's the married contributor? Who's the single breadwinner? Well, over 96% of financial decisions made at home are made by the woman. Investment decisions aren't. Perhaps it has something to do with where you are coming from. That suddenly single, that married breadwinner, the married contributor, and being the single breadwinner. Keep in mind too, as women, in addition to having unique challenges financially, women are outliving men. Sorry for those who, it's fact. And the average lifespan, we're getting close to about 90. So you really need to be planning and part of this process. So as a suddenly single woman, what we learned from our research, and confirm for yourselves, think about this. When you're engaging with your financial professionals, is it in fact, what we found from our research, speak to me plainly. Have my back. Be a trusted partner. The suddenly single is a group that recently is widowed, divorced within the last 2 years. Certainly wasn't prepared for this, certainly wasn't anticipating this. A lot of our respondents who were part of our study that fell into the suddenly single category had allowed their significant others to really take lead on investment matters. And when they found themselves in this position, didn't know where to begin. And so when we looked at it from an investment standpoint, really having much more of a conservative approach, not wanting to take on that risk, which makes sense. Your world's been completely turned upside down. But you need to take that understanding, take stock of, okay, while I need things to be fairly safe and conservative, if I want to reach any goals, I'm going to have to get comfortable with a little bit more of the riskier investments. I might be focusing more on the day-to-day security, but I'm going to have to go beyond that and think beyond just the day-to-day. Some things to consider as you have conversations with your financial professional, making sure that you can establish your own, well, first and foremost, where is everything? Do you know where everything is? Are accounts titled the way that they're supposed to be titled? Do you know how to access the things that you're supposed to access and how you're able to access? Do you know what the plans have been thus far? Once you've done that, thinking about establishing your own credit and making sure that you're comfortable with your budgeting, ensuring that you have enough of your own insurance coverage in the event that something happens to you. Those are the things that you want to consider as the suddenly single person. Now, our married breadwinners, this is a little bit different. Our married breadwinners are the primary earners of the household. Their needs, from what we learned from our research, was in fact that it's a little bit different. The concerns are different. They have their own values, they have their own goals, but understand that there might be some mishaps. You might have in mind what you're already thinking about. In fact, you might be more comfortable with taking a little bit more risk and taking on more of the investments. But there's areas that, as a financial professional, they can bring to you some different things for you to focus on because you're already focusing on your career as well as running your household. Some things to keep in mind as a married breadwinner, making sure that you are engaged with your spouse when it comes to having these conversations with the financial professional. Are you on the same page? Similar to our suddenly single, also ensuring that you have enough insurance coverage. While this might not seem, or this may seem surprising, we, in addition to our initial research study that we did a subsequent study just on married breadwinners. And we actually learned, unfortunately, our primary earners, female primary earners, aren't fully insured, aren't fully covered. So taking stock of that to make sure that you're the primary earner. You're the financial lead for your household. You want to make sure that you are covered for your family in the event anything should happen. The other thing to consider as a married breadwinner, as the primary earner, also as a woman, always taking care of others first, your retirement focuses, your retirement goals. You know that you're setting aside money and investing for retirement. You have an idea of what that timeline is going to be, but are you maximizing those opportunities? Are you having the conversation with your financial professional to ensure that you are maximizing, you're paying yourself first? Keep that in mind as the married breadwinner. Our married contributor. Now, this is a little bit different than that of the married breadwinner because in our research, we found that some of our married contributors did contribute financially to the home. Some may have not. A lot of the respondents that were in our study that fell under this group shared with us that they did participate at one point in the conversation when it came to their investments and financial planning. Something shifted and they started to pull away. If you find yourself in this position as the married contributor, understand you are outliving your husband. You want to make sure that you're having the conversations, you're fully aware of the plan, you know what's going on, you know where everything is, just in the event that, God forbid, something happens and you find yourself in the suddenly single group. Average age of widowhood is about 59 years old. And if we're talking about a lifespan going close to 90, that's a long time. You need to be prepared. You need to be part of that conversation. Understand what you need from your financial professional. Have that conversation. Do not let that meeting go. Do not forego that meeting because your spouse can take care of it. It's your responsibility just as much. In addition to that, keep in mind, with a lot of our female investors, for the most part, they're not just caregivers for themselves, for their families, but also elderly parents. And as we discussed, there's also longevity for women investors as a whole. If average nursing home costs, senior assisted living, could be anywhere north of $250,000 for yourself. Imagine if you're not having these conversations and aware and prepared for the event that happens with your parents, with your spouse's parents. These are the kinds of things that you want to be considering and talking with your financial professional so they can help plan. Now, if you find yourself as a single breadwinner, this group is separate, distinct from our married breadwinner, married contributor, in the sense that she doesn't have that partner per se. That might be you. It might have been, you may find yourself as a single breadwinner because you were part of the suddenly single and now 5 years in. And you're really doing a lot of juggling. You're comfortable with taking investments. You understand, but maybe you're not putting in the time to truly follow through and take opportunity to learn as much as possible. We learned in our research, this particular group, the need for education, the desire for education was really key, not only for themselves, but actually for their children as well. And is that for you? Ask that for yourself. If in fact you find yourself in this position, this is an opportunity for you to engage with your financial professional and ask for information. Give them the tools, the ideas that they need to be able to bring to you so that you are engaged, you are focused. So that was the first challenge, right? Understanding where you're coming from. Suddenly single, you're married breadwinner, you're married contributor, you're single breadwinner. The second thing that we need to consider, and a challenge that's faced by female investors per our study, overall financial literacy and understanding. We learned in our study, unfortunately, even though we live in a world today where we have so much information that's present and available for us, that's almost the problem. There's too much information. And oftentimes we don't take the time and the opportunity to really engage in our finances and take the moment. You're here now, and I give you kudos for that for sure. But we want to understand, take real stock of yourselves. When we first did this study, we identified and learned across generations. So you can see here, millennials, Gen X, boomers, across the board, women are falling a little bit short as compared to men when it comes to overall financial literacy. Ask yourself where you are. How comfortable are you beyond budgeting? How comfortable are you with investing? What are the things that you should be considering? For example, do you know for savings that you should be setting aside 15%? Now, how you divvy up that 15% into the various goals, whether it's short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, that's entirely up to you in a conversation that you have with your financial professional, but 15% is the magic number. When you think of how much you should be setting aside for your emergency funds, 6 months worth. Tabulate your monthly fixed expenses and your goal that you want to set aside in your emergency bucket, just cash that you can access, because as we all know, the older we get, the more expensive our emergencies become. 6 months worth. Have a good, strong understanding of how to use your credit score, because that's the number that identifies you as a potential borrower to lenders. What decides what kind of interest rate you're going to get. Maximize the use of your debt. Understanding that you want to stay 35% below, meaning your credit cards, because you want to have credit cards. You want to show that you're able to use your credit cards, pay off your credit cards. You have a good handle on your finances. The key thing to keep in mind there, below 35%. So if your credit limit, the amount that you can use up to, call it just for easy math, $1,000, you want to stay below 35%, so below $350 a month. If you are like me and have a couple different credit cards, let's just say, what you could do is take the balance of everything, combine everything that you have, the credit cards and the limits that you can use up to, and spend 35% below from there. But what I would recommend is actually taking per card, the credit limit that you have per card, and staying below 35% to just give you a little bit more of that excess room. The whole point being getting yourself comfortable with your overall financial literacy, where you are, what you need to know, what you need to get comfortable with, getting into a plan and the habits. Number 3, changing the dialogue. This is more of that idea of going back to, we are now no longer in a place where this relationship is a one-way street. In fact, it is very much so combined. You are part of this process. You get to change the narrative. You get to bring forward what's important to you. Your financial professional may not know these things. You have to take part. You have to take control of the situation. Identify first what's important to you. Meaning, what are the things that are going to help you in being able to further this conversation with your advisor? Takes the time to understand my specific needs. Checks in with my goals. Do you share what your goals are? Do you share when things are happening? what things that you are needing when it comes to communication, the types of communication, the way in which you're being communicated with. Is it in fact face-to-face meetings? Is it emails? Is it phone calls? When you're having information presented to you, are you sharing with your financial professional the best way for you to be able to encapsulate that information and take that in? We want to make sure that you know that you're in that power seat. It's your seat at your financial table. You get to dictate and show what's important in order for you to make sure that you're staying involved and engaged in that conversation and participating in this relationship. This is certainly not one, and we learned in our research, unfortunately, oftentimes when there's meetings with financial professionals, because life happens, it turns out that this is the one that gets changed or rescheduled off and on. We want to step away from that. The only way to change this relationship and this notion of this relationship is for you to take charge, identify and share what's important to you, communicate that with your financial professional. Fourth, tracking progress, meaning in all the things that we do, in order for us to stay on track, in order for us to continue to work forward and work towards a goal, we have to see how we're doing, right? Think about, I'm wearing an Apple Watch. It's important to me. I check it probably more than I should. But it's the same idea with our finances. We want to make sure that we're staying on track so that we stay focused. Because unfortunately, a lot of things can happen where you can get completely and easily taken off track. So how are you engaging with your financial professional in order to make sure that you're able to stay on track? What are the things that's making sure that you are aligned with the goals that you have? Remember when I was going through the first part, know your role, and particularly with our married breadwinners, where there are goals that are confirmed, that there are some ideas what we're working towards. There are other things that we need to be considering as well. That's what you lean on with your financial professional. But because life happens, you want to make sure that you are taking the time to go through and sharing what those changes are. If adjustments need to be made to the plan, the other thing with investment plans, as you all know, they are not static, meaning as you're checking your progress, as you are having life happen and having to sometimes kind of take a step back and come back in, you can make adjustments. The adjustments are done by the communication with your financial professional. Remind yourself what your goals are. How are you going to achieve those goals? What the purpose of those goals? I know a lot of people like to have vision boards and the whole nine. I remember when I started investing, it was more of a, what do I ultimately want? And it could just be small things, but that's what keeps you going. And that's what helps you stay on track. Remember I said, when you're saving, you're setting aside 15%. Part of that 15% is going to be allocated to short-term, mid-term, and long-term. What are your short-term goals? Meaning, what do you want to achieve in the next 2 to 3 years? How do you make sure that that stays top of mind so that you stay focused in achieving that goal? For medium-term goals, what are the things that you want to do in the next, call it 5 to 7 years, 5 to 8 years? That's even longer, right? So it becomes a little bit harder to stay on track and stay focused. And it's harder to make sure that you're doing that and setting aside the funds and being part of this process and staying focused. But try to keep that top of mind as well. Your long-term goals, generally speaking, are going to be your retirement goals. So that's even a longer time frame. But understand with the longer time frames, you can take on a little bit more risk. These are conversations that you're having with your financial professional. But because they're long-term does not mean that you lose sight of them. What are the ways that you can automate so that you are able to still achieve your long-term goals, i.e. your retirement savings, your 401k plans? How are you ensuring that you are paying yourself first? Are you maximizing? Do you know your contribution limits that you can set aside? This is just for you. Are you ensuring that if there are company match opportunities, making sure that you're getting the max there, because that's just free money that's coming towards you? The whole point is you want to make sure that you are staying on top and you're paying attention, tracking that progress to go forward, to be able to hit those goals. Lastly, staying engaged. This relationship that you have, it's your finances, and every life event is going to have some sort of financial component to it. But the relationship that you have with your financial professional, this is not a one-time thing. This is not you come in for one meeting, you go through, where everything is and what you ultimately want to achieve and just say goodbye. No. In fact, you have to stay focused. You have to take the time to stay engaged, to be abreast of what's going on. What are you preparing when you're coming to the meeting ahead of time? What are the questions that you're bringing to your financial professional when you're meeting with them? What are the opportunities where you're actually being able to engage in these educational events? I mean, you're doing it here today, but are there other opportunities? Are you taking full advantage of those opportunities? What are the types of questions that you're asking to ensure that you are getting as much as possible from your financial professional? When it comes to financial literacy, have you established and firmly understand what your budgeting goals are and what you want to set aside for investments, what you should be setting aside? Have you discussed time and time again what your risk tolerance is, what your time horizon is? As you go through your goals, are things changing? What things need to be shifted? How are you making sure that you are staying at that table? We shared at the beginning when we did our research with our female investors, we found that our married contributors, this was the group that initially was partaking in the conversations, very much part of the decision making when it came to investment decisions, and yet started to pull away. Catch yourself. Catch yourself to make sure that you're staying in front of this conversation, because it is your conversation. It's your idea. It's what you need to do in order to stay present, to feel successful. But also part of it is, as you are engaged, as you are educating yourself, it becomes more exciting. It's not something that feels like, oh, I can't do this. A lot of times we find that with our female investors, the other part was, I can't do this. I'm too late in doing this. A very negative kind of mindset when it comes towards money. But no, it's all it is taking a few steps back and identifying where are the areas that I need to get more comfortable. Who can I reach out to and work with? This is your financial professional available here for you. I mean, they're putting on an entire summit just for you. So taking full advantage of that as well. So what we're asking for you today, as we kind of close out this session, making sure, taking stock, where are you? When we say know your role, how are you approaching this? Are you in that suddenly single group where perhaps you weren't as focused when it came to your financial plans, your investment plans? Do you know where everything is? Do you know how to establish enough credit for yourself? Are you having these types of conversations with your financial professional? Are you the married breadwinner, and have you shared that you're the married breadwinner, that you're the primary earner for the household? How are you engaging with your spouse, and how does your financial professional know to engage with both of you? Are you on the same page? Have you aligned your goals together, and are you checking in with one another on the different goals that you may have? As the married contributor, have you taken a step back, and do you need to come back in? What's going to be important to you? Have you shared what's important to you to your financial professional so that they can engage and give that opportunity for you? As the single breadwinner, understanding that yes, you don't have a partner in the conventional sense, but your financial professional is that financial partner for you, sharing and giving them the ways in which you need to be told the information that you need, not only for yourself, but also for your children. Taking stock of where you are with your overall financial literacy. How comfortable are you with investing terms? Do a quick reminder. Are you setting aside 15% to the best of your ability? Are you setting aside that 15%? And where is it going? How are you doing it? What's automated? What's going to your 401k, your long-term plans? What's going into your medium-term plans? How comfortable are you when it comes to stocks, bonds, just sitting in cash? I know you guys all just had a session on the introduction to investing. Hopefully there's some good takeaways in there that you can also bring to your next meeting. But taking stock of that. Where are the areas that you want more information on? Changing the narrative, changing the dialogue, changing the dynamics of the relationship. This is you. This is your time. Maybe it is coming to a meeting ahead of time with your own agenda for the topics that you want to discuss, because it's your financial life. What are the things that you're doing to make sure that you are staying on top of this? We can't just set a goal and think, okay, we'll be able to attain it without checking in, right? I mean, I think the running a marathon analogy has been used several times, and I'll use it again. You want to check in on your progress. You cannot do it all at once. So you break it up into smaller chunks, smaller goals, but you have to stay on top of it. which then also leads into just making sure that you're engaged in the process overall. How are you having these conversations? What else are you bringing to the table? In addition to your investment ideas and kind of just financial literacy as a whole, you also want to be able to share what's going on in your life, because all the things that are going to go in that are happening in your life are going to impact this relationship, impact the plans that you are working and deciding on in conjunction with your financial professional in order to meet them. So are you sharing that with them? That's what I have for today for prepared comments. Thank you so very much for your time this afternoon, this evening. Like I said, my name is Janet Coe. I'm with New York Life Investments, part of our Advisor Advancement Institute. Certainly, again, thank you for joining this session. If there are any questions, as a reminder, please send them through to investmentservices@becu.org. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful evening.